Welcome to the 4th annual Skylanders Awards ceremony. That's right, I've done 4 of these on the channel, so for the last few years I have incorporated something new every single ceremony. So in the first Skylanders Awards, it was of course the idea of a concept I introduced to the world. Then for the 2nd annual Skylanders Awards, I made it so that then rather than myself selecting nominees, I had my loyal viewers select them for me and I chose the winner. Then for our 3rd annual Skylanders Awards, I wound up adding new award categories for my fellow YouTube collaborators to nominate Skylanders for. But this year, I'm going to be giving the games the Mario Party treatment and basing them solely off of luck. So I have a random name generator that can pick any number between 3 and 9, and that's going to be the number of nominees for a specific category. And then I'm going to flicker over to a random name picker, which is going to pick for random names for the random number of nominees of that category. And of course, in those random name pickers is going to be every single Skylander eligible for that award. So in some cases we're going to have every single Skylander eligible for the award, so let's just say that the ones that are chosen are going to be very lucky in most cases. So let it be known that if your favourite Skylander doesn't win awards this year, that's just because apparently the random name picker doesn't like them and they just got really unlucky. So without further ado, let's get into this year's Skylander games. In my hastiness to emphasise the fact that this year's Skylanders Awards has been given the Mario Party treatment and is based solely off of luck, I completely neglected to mention the fact that my only award that's going to be in the background this year is going to be this one on my huge plaque right here. Simply because my other 2 awards I have unfortunately had to give back to the school which originally gave them to me. But not to worry, I took plenty of photos for which I can flex about those awards to you now on film of all things. Regardless, let me know in the live chat right next to me about any awards you have won in your life, mind you. I'm sure they were well earned, and I'll generally be intrigued about any stories of awards that you have to call your own. Regardless, for those of you who haven't won any awards yet, don't you worry, I'm sure you'll have awards flooding in left, right and centre in your future, since being a unique, awesome human being in and of itself is worth an award. So just keep being the amazing person you are, and I'm sure your potential will be realised soon enough. So without further ado, let's see how many nominees we're going to have generated for the Core Award. It's going to be none other than 8 entire nominees. Who knows, we might even get 1 core per element, but I doubt that highly. So without further ado, let's head on over to the Core nominees list and find out what random names are going to be generated. So our first nominee is going to be none other than a page that I need to scroll down, but second of all, it's going to be Scratch, so that's our first nominee right now. Then our next nominee is going to be none other than several ads apparently, but then we're going to scroll down again and find out that our second nominee is going to be Trigger Happy. Now our third nominee is going to be none other than Frino. But who's our 4th nominee going to be? With only 5 more slots left, we're going to see what our final cast of 8 nominees for the core element are going to be very shortly. So our next one is Roller Brawl for our 4th nominee right there. 4 down, 4 to go. So our next nominee for the core award is going to be none other than Dino-Rang. So now with 5 down, we've got 3 more slots available for 3 more core characters. And our next one for the core award is going to be Warnado. So with 2 more nominees to go, let's find out who our final nominees for the core award are going to be. Starting off with Treadhead. But now, we have 1 final spot for the core award. And our final nominee is going to be none other than Drobot. So before you, we have the 8 nominees that were randomly generated for the Core Award, the award which goes to the greatest core of the entire franchise. And so without further ado, as always, we're going to be starting off with the runner-up, which is going to be none other than Roller Brawl. So what's so great about Roller Brawl is the fact that she has everything that you're going to want from a Skylander. She has speed, power, projectiles, as well as melee based attacks to make her moveset very balanced and very fun to utilise, with her speed and movement options being unparalleled amongst the rest of the cast you see before you. But of course, that's still not enough to take away the award from the one most deserving Skylander amongst the whole cast here, and that's going to be Drobot. Now, what makes Drobot such a great core is, first of all, his excellent design. He's an amalgamation of a dragon and a robot, which is so cool to see, and it has an awesome personality to go alongside it, reminding me highly of the Decepticon Soundwave. But as I digress, Drobot's also really awesome in-game, with some really great speed to make him a very well-paced character, and some very overpowered lasers to make him easy to pick up for any players and really start annihilating your enemies. It's as the old saying goes, blink and destroy. We're once again back at the random number generator to find out how many giants are going to be nominated for the Giant Award. Now, I've got to hope that it's not 9, otherwise it's going to be quite impossible considering there are only 8 giants within the nomination pool. But without further ado, we have half of the Giants cast available for nomination right here, since 4 nominees can be generated from our random name picker. So our first nominee is going to be none other than T-Rex. But as for our second nominee, on the other hand, we have none other than Swarm. But with half of the nominees already having been chosen, let's see what our final 2 are going to be. Eyebrow. But now our final nomination for the Giants Award is going to be none other than Nin Genie. So here are the nominees of the Giant Award, the award given to the greatest giant. So without further ado, starting off with our runner-up, we have Eyebrow. Now, what I really love about Eyebrow is the detail put into his figurine. He's a chunk of armour that has all sorts of battle damage and, of course, cuts and bruises all over it to create for a very rich history that is really executed very well through the design of the figurine. And above all, in-game, Eyebrow has a really unique moveset and some very unique movement options. But speaking of movement options, that's what's going to ultimately land Swarm with the award right here, because Swarm has some really great movement options. He can hover to allow him to move quickly, and then of course fire projectiles at all in all directions even, and then he also has some very powerful melee based attacks which allows him to charge forward and evade enemy attacks very easily. So ultimately, because Swarm is the most maneuverable of all the giants, it makes him the most well-paced character, the most balanced of all of them between his projectile and melee game, and it just makes him the most fun to utilise because of it, even if Eyebrow's design is slightly better, mind you. So that's what lands Swarm with the Giant Award. Next up is going to be the Swapper Award, so it's time to find out how many nominees we can generate for this here category, and it's going to be none other than 8 once again. So without further ado, let's start with our first name being none other. Then, once I can scroll down, that is, Free Ranger. But our next nominee is going to be none other than Night Shift. But with 2 nominees down and only 6 more to go, let's find out who our next nominee is going to be. It is going to be none other than Magna Charge. So now our 4th nominee is going to be Boomjet. Now our 5th nominee is going to be none other than Night Shift, who's already been chosen, so we need to pick yet again another random name in place of him, because we can't nominate the same character twice now, can we? So the real 5th nominee is not going to be Boomjet either, because he also has been picked already. So our real 5th nominee is going to be Hoot Loop. But as for our 6th nominee, we're going to have ourselves none other than, not Boomjet, once again it can't be him, he's already been nominated. So our real 6th nominee is going to be none other than Magna Charge, who again also can't be nominated. Yeah, this random name picker really likes Boomjet apparently, but the real 6th nominee is going to be none other than Stink Bomb. But who's our 7th going to be? Let's find out after we scroll right down the page right here. It's going to be none other than, well, not Hoot Loop, that's for sure. So our real number 7 nominee is going to be none other than, well, I can't be Night Shift once again. Like, come on, random name generator, pick somebody different, would you? Such as Trap Shadow, he will do. But now we move on to our final nomination, which is going to be none other than Wash Buckler. Here we are with the 8 nominees for the Swap Force Award, the award given to the best Swap Force Skylander from the entirety of the franchise. And so without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Magna Charge. Now, first of all, this guy has a really unique idea behind his gameplay, with it being centered around magnets, which is just a really fresh and unique idea. He has some incredible detail woven into his design, such as all of his battle armor having cuts and bruises all over it to really signify that his character is an absolute beast who has had its fair share of battles. Regardless, it's also very interesting how Magna Charge has a gun for an arm instead, and truly gives that robotic feel to make him really included as part of the tech element of Skylanders. But he still doesn't hold a candle to the best swapper. Earning the Swapper Award is going to be none other than Boomjet, who has everything you want in a Swap Force character. He has speed, he has a bottom half that can knock back enemies as well as deal huge chunks of damage at once. He has a last minute option, which is especially great during locks, where he can of course be provided with air support in the case of food when he's at low health and calling in airstrikes, mind you. So the fact that you can have a last ditch effort with this character makes him all the more intense and all the more fun to play as you utilise his projectile and speed game to truly speedrun Skylanders with great efficiency. He is easily my go-to speedrunner, and that's what makes him such a great Swap Force character and worthy of this award. So next up we move on to the Trapmaster Award, which once again we're going to utilise the random name generator to find out how many nominees are going to be chosen, and it's going to be none other than 5 nominees that shall be selected for the Trapmaster Award. And that's going to start off with none other than Wallop as our first nominee, but as for our second nominee of the hand, we are going to have none other than Nightlight, but our third nominee is going to be none other than Bushwhack. That is how it's spelled, believe in me. It's not Bushwhack, it's not Bushwhacker, just simply Bushwhack. Regardless, our fourth nominee is going to be Lobstar. So now let's find out our fifth and final nominee, so long as the names don't repeat themselves. And our fifth and final nominee is going to be none other than Crypt King. Here we have the nominees for the Trapmaster Award, the award given to the greatest Trapmaster of the entire franchise. And so without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Crypt King. First of all, his design is awesome. The contrasting colours between the black and the gold really makes this character stand out on a visual level, especially with that giant sword of all things to make the character have this really badass feeling to him. And it's a great execution of, well, great representation even of Egyptian culture, with of course the shaping of the figurine and the design made to parallel that of a pharaoh. So of course it's really great to have one of my favourite cultures reflected so well through a Skylander. And above all, Crypt King is also really powerful in game with some really fluent and fleshed out combos and animations to make this character a force to be reckoned with. But ultimately he's not quite as brainless as our winner within this category, Nightlight. Now the reason why I call Nightlight brainless is because you can literally mash buttons and win with ease. It makes him such an easy and fun character to pick up with some really great pacing, and above all he's incredibly colourful as well. Being as part of a light element, you can use light attacks everywhere to create just a pool of colours, you could say, making him a very visually pleasing character. And his design above all is phenomenal. Sure, whilst the colours are a little boring because the whites and the gold definitely don't contrast each other as well as Crypt King's colours do, the rest of him is full with glitter that really gleams, and it's a very unique design, being a blend of an owl and an angel, if I can even speak correctly, that is, making him very unique and very cool to look at in terms of his figurine, mind you, and also very well textured to make him fun to pick up and play with. So yes, that is indeed what makes Nightlight the worthy winner of the Trapmaster Award. Next up comes the Supercharger Awards. Without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees we're going to have for this award category, and it's going to be none other than 9, the highest number of nominations a single category can get. So we're going to start off with our first name being generated, and our first Supercharger nominee is going to be none other than Diveclops. But now we move on to our second Supercharger nominee, and my laptop is so excited for the awards this year that it's currently getting itself overheated for him, you could say. But regardless, our next nomination is going to be Hurricane Jetpack. But as for our third nomination, we are going to have none other than Turbocharged Donkey Kong. But our fourth nomination is going to be none other than Nightfall. Now our fifth nomination is going to be none other than Deep Dive Gilgren. It's a miracle because we haven't repeated the names just yet, unlike we did several times with the Swap Force Award. But regardless, our sixth nomination is going to be none other than High Vault. But as for our seventh nomination, we have none other than High Vault once again. Random name picker chose the same name twice in a row, but our real seventh nomination is actually going to be HammerSlam Bowser. So now we have two more nomination slots left, so our eighth one is going to be none other than, well, it can't be HammerSlam Bowser since we've had him already, but our real number 8 nomination even is going to be, well, not Deep Dive Gilgren. I should stop starting these with the real 8th nomination, especially when the real 8th nomination doesn't seem to want to pop up since we keep getting the same names repeated over and over, including Nightfall right here. Yeah, Random Name Picker really likes some of these names, and I really don't like the other ones, but regardless, our 8th one for real is going to be Smash Hit. But now let's find out who our final nomination is going to be, that is, if we don't have a name repeat itself, unlike Turbocharged Donkey Kong, which is exactly what a name repeating itself looks like. So regardless, our real night nomination is not going to be High Vault, but in actuality it is going to be none other than High Vault again, apparently. The random name generator really likes High Vault. But as for the number 9 nomination, we can't have Dive Clock because he was our very first nomination. But for real this time, we cannot, however, have Hurricane Jetpack as our final nomination since he's been chosen already. And neither can we have Smash Hit either. There are 18 names to choose from here, and yet the random name generator seems to keep on picking the same ones. Except for Sharkshooter Terrapin, who's going to be our 9th and final nomination for the Supercharger category. Here we have our nominees for the Supercharger Award, the award given to the greatest supercharger of the entirety of the franchise. And so without further ado, our runner-up is going to be none other than a Skylander, which at first I didn't like him very much when he was very first introduced into the series. However, this form of the Skylander has a significant improvement in comparison to its previous iterations, and that's of course going to be Sharkshooter Terrapin, since whilst its design is still kind of lame, you know, it's just a shark with a bit of rock armor and a huge cannon to boot. It's the gameplay of this character that ultimately makes up for it all, because the shark shooting cannon is so much more fun than the punching, mind you, and it's so much more fast paced, and he's got a lot more animations that look more smooth and are more fun to pull off, especially on a visual level. But speaking of visuals, my favourite supercharger and the one receiving this award is going to be HammerSlam Bowser. So what makes HammerSlam Bowser so great on a visual level is the fact that he's the perfect amalgamation of all of his years of Nintendo history and all of his aesthetics to make him fit in within the Skylanders cast, to make him truly a cartoon character that can include things like one pupil being larger than the other, his, of course, posing, making him seem more villainous and ready for combat, you could say, as a Skylander, mind you. And so ultimately, the fact that they were able to take such an iconic video gaming character and make him fit along with the cast of Skylanders so well in such a colourful, cartoonish manner is what makes HammerSlam Bowser so well designed. But his gameplay on top of that is so fun. The fact that his hammer can combo into the Koopas being launched all over the screen to create for some very crazy visuals and some very fun combinations that are fluent to pull off and very fast paced is ultimately what makes HammerSlam Bowser such a fun character to both look at on a visual level, to feel in your hands with the great texturing, and on top of that just play as in the game due to how fluent and fun their combat can be. Now it's time to start off the vehicle category with how many nominations can be selected from. So time to generate our random number. And it's going to be 5 after it eventually loaded itself. So our first of the 5 nominations is going to be none other than the Tomb Buggy. But our second nomination of the 5 is going to be none other than the Shark Tank. Our third nomination is going to be the Shark Tank again. Lucky for it, it manages to get two choices in a row. But regardless, our actual third nomination is actually going to be for Sea Shadow. Now, as for our fourth nomination, which my laptop is really excited about, hence the phantom background, we have Crypt Crusher. And finally, our last nomination of the category is going to be none other than the Jetstream. Before us, we have the 5 nominees that were randomly generated for the Vehicle Award, the award given to the greatest vehicle from the Skylanders franchise. And so without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Sea Shadow, purely because I love the fact that this vehicle takes full advantage of being part of the sea terrain, because it's based on several sea creatures to truly give it that marine based feeling to it, because it truly looks and feels like a submarine. It has some very unique colorization to make it really stand out amongst the rest of the crowd, with its really contrasting, very eye pleasing colors that really gleam in the sunlight, you could say. And so it's ultimately some very clever design work that makes it truly feel as part of the terrain that it's going to be, of course, diving through, as well as, of course, those nice colours to make it truly something very attractive and something that you want to play as a toy. But the best vehicle amongst this crowd, however, is going to be for Crypt Crusher, purely because it's such a cool looking vehicle, having a coffin as for bumper, and then a giant wheel that looks just like a drum and sounds like one too as you're driving it along like a toy. It's just such a clever idea and a clever concept, mind you. It truly fits in with its element, that being the undead element, and it's a fun toy to play with, taking advantage of the gimmick that these vehicles don't have any sort of base to limit their playing potential. And the Crypt Crusher is just really fun in game as well, having a nice rhythm to its music, making it very investing, making you want to play as the vehicle more, because it has those sweet tunes to boot. So that's ultimately what makes the Crypt Crusher the greatest vehicle in Skylanders history. As for our next category, we have the Sensei Award, so without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees there will be for this category, and it's going to be none other than 9 entire nominees. So without further ado, let's jump into the random name generator to find out who those 9 nominees will be. Starting off, of course, with none other than Mr. Cat, but our second nominee is going to be none other than Taekwon Clue. But as for our third one, getting all of that terrible pronunciations out of the way, we're going to have a tide pool. Sorry, I kind of lost my own wording right there. But regardless, our fourth nomination is going to be Barbella, once again without the terrible stereotypical pronunciation of the character's name right now. But next up we have Buckshot for our fifth nomination. So our sixth nomination is going to be none other than Golden Queen. But our seventh nomination is going to be none other than Starcast. Our eighth nomination is going to be, as our second to last nomination, none other than Charlie Mange. But last and most certainly not least, for our ninth nomination, we have none other than, well, it's not going to be Typool because she has been chosen out already, but on the other hand, it can most certainly be not Chompy Mage either. But hopefully for the last time, we're going to find out who this final nomination is going to be, and it's going to be Chaos! Before you, we have the 9 nominees of the Sensei Award, the award given to the greatest sensei of the entire franchise. And so without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Taekwon Crow, because first of all, his gameplay is really fast-paced and can get really chaotic at times, with huge shurikens being fired everywhere and ricocheting off walls, with giant buzzer beats coming in to truly deal with crowd control in very effective manners. So overall, Taekwon Crow is really fun on a gameplay level, and of course on a personality level too, with him having just such a really interesting, charismatic personality to boot. But there is one sensei amongst the nominees that I would consider better than Taekwon Crow and worthy of this award, and that's going to be none other than Tidepool. On a design basis, Tidepool is easily one of the best the senseis have to offer, with her combination of marine life to make her look like some sort of super secret spy from under the ocean. It's just a really cool concept, and the moulding really brings the personality of the character to life. She's very nimble and creates some very fluent movement, with attacks that really chain together very well and are very fast paced to create for great efficiency in battle and a huge amount of fun to boot. So ultimately, that's what makes Tidepool the best of the senseis nominated, the fact that she has an amazing design and some amazing gameplay to go along with said amazing design, mind you. Next up we have the mini awards, so without further ado we're going to generate a random number to find out how many nominees are going to be included within this category, and it's none other than 7, so without further ado let's head into the mini random name generator to find out who our first nominee is going to be, and is going to be none other than Breeze. But as for our second nominee, however, hopefully we don't get Breeze twice in a row right here, although that would be ironic. We have Trigger Snappy. Then next up we have ourselves Mini Ginny for our third nominee, but now our fourth nominee is going to be none other than Gil Runt, and our fifth nominee is going to be none other than Spry, but our sixth nominee, our second to last, is going to be none other than Iceball. But as for our final nominee, it's going to be hopefully someone who hasn't repeated themselves. It's going to be Thumplin, who isn't a repeat, therefore our seventh and final nominee is indeed Thumpling, to be saying the least. Before you we have the 7 nominees of the Mini Award, the award given to the greatest mini of the entire franchise. So without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Breeze, purely because she fulfills the purpose of a mini perfectly, because she's so darn cute. Look at her, the tiny horn, the huge eyes, the fluffy tail. Oh, she's so adorable, I just want to squeeze her to death. And so where's the point in creating miniature versions of Skylanders, which are, you know, aimed to be adorable and attractive to young children due to said adorability, if you don't make the mini version of the Skylander process adorable? Well, that's exactly what Breeze nails, so the fact that they was able to take such an awesome design and minify it to make it even cuter is what makes Breeze such an awesome mini. Not to mention she's also quite an admired mini, because she's she's amongst some of the rarest Skylanders, you could say. So it gives me a close connection to the character, as it's an absolute honour to own it. But as I digress, our greatest mini is going to be none other than Gilrunt, because out of all of the minis before you, Gilrunt easily has the greatest gameplay. His harpoons are fast-paced and really fun to use, mostly because they are pretty broken when you take into consideration the range, the speed and the power that they deal. And then you can also combo that quite well with his hose pipe, which you can use to of course push back and stun enemies and then finish them off with a harpoon gun. So overall, Gilrunt definitely has the best gameplay of all of the minis nominated, and that's what grants him the well-deserved Mini Award. Next up we have ourselves the Lightcore Awards. Without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees will be found within this category, and it's going to be none other than 3, the lowest amount a single category can be nominated for. But regardless, our first nomination of the 3 of them is going to be none other than Lightcore Countdown. But our next nomination, our second to last, we've already gotten that far into it, is going to be Lightcore Grim Creeper. And our final nomination, hopefully we're not going to have someone repeat themselves here, is going to be none other than Lightcore Starstrike. Before you, we have the 3 nominees for the Lightcore Award, the award given to the greatest Lightcore of the entire franchise, and coincidentally enough, 3 was the lowest number of nominees that this category could have possibly achieved, so unlucky for all the other 13 Lightcores who never stood a chance of getting nominated, mind you. But without further ado, let's turn off the lights so we can talk about this year's runner-up. So now with the lights off and our portal before us, we can confirm that the runner-up for the Lightcore Award is none other than Lightcore Countdown, simply because his Lightcore effect draws attention to the bomb on his head, and that brings so much personality and informs you about what the character is all about in terms of his gameplay, because he is the bomb. So the fuse on that bomb lighting up to of course draw attention to his face as he blows himself up is just such a great expression of the character's personality, and it makes the Lightcore overall very fun to look at, mind you, and very well designed. But speaking of well designed, our winner is going to be none other than Grim Creeper, purely because his Lightcore effect is very strong and very visible, especially in the dark, as you can see before you. But easily the greatest thing about Grim Creeper's Lightcore effect is that once again it brings more meaning to the figurine, since it signifies the soul within Grim Creeper and the fact that you can detach it from the body and reattach it in order to create fluent and efficient combos to defeat your enemies with. So overall that makes the character really fun to look at on a visual level, and the Lightcore effect itself is not only well implemented, but it looks so damn awesome in the night because of the fact that it's so powerful, and that's ultimately what makes Grim Creeper the deserving winner of the Lightcore Award. So our next category is going to be the Design Award. So without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees are going to be classified in this category, and it's going to be none other than 8. So without further ado, we're going to jump into a random name generator, and as you can see before you, every single Skylander is classified as a potential nominee for this category, so naturally that means every single Skylander has been implemented into a random name picker. So let's just say that our 8 nominees are going to be very, very lucky to have been chosen. But regardless, our first of those nominees is going to be none other than Wallop. And our next nominee for the Design Award is going to be none other than Whirlwind. Then our next nominee, our third one for this category, is going to be none other than Ninjini. Now our fourth nominee for this category, which means we're already halfway there, is going to be Spotlight. Now our next nominee, our fifth one for the category, is going to be none other than Wildfire. Now our sixth nominee for the design category is going to be none other than Hoot Loop. Our seventh nominee for the category is going to be hopefully not a repeat, because there's definitely enough Skylanders for the random name picker to choose from. But anyway, we have Blast Zone. So now we move on to our final nominee for the category, and it's going to be none other than Snapshot. So before you, we have the 8 nominees for the Design Award, the award given to the Skylander with the greatest design of the entire franchise, and so naturally speaking, it will turn out that the random name picker was really biased against the cause for this here award. Without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Wildfire. Now what really makes this Trapmaster for me is his Traptanium weapon. The shield has embedded within it a lion's face, and that's just a huge sheer amount of detail that the developers even didn't need to put in, and yet they did it anyway. It makes this figurine look all the more intimidating, and it makes Wildfire a character that you really want to play as. And not to mention, you also have the golden aspects of the figurine that truly gives the idea that this lion figure is made of gold, an element that's strong and pure. So needless to say, it definitely presents Wildfire as a force to be reckoned with, and makes you really want to play him, because this design is just so epic, combining a lion with the fire element and a really awesome Traptanium shield that's so well designed. You can't go much wrong with that. But the Design Award is going to go to none other than Hoot Loop, who I reckon deserves it for being the perfect amalgamation of an owl, a soldier, a magician, because first of all, it was really clever how they did his bottom half with a loop, because of course, for loop, that normally Hoot Loop levitates the top off, of course can't be done on the actual figurine, but instead, it kind of tethers itself back with a rope type thing. So what I'm trying to say here is that Hoot Loop, the way how they constructed the figurine is very creative to give the illusion that Hoot Loop from the front is actually levitating over the ring, making for a really magical illusion. So once again, that definitely emphasizes Hoot Loop's element, mind you. But it's not just the figurine where the design awesomeness ends, because of course the gameplay is very creative and really matches with the design. Like the moveset feels like it fits with this type of character, with the owl doing his Houdini type tricks, and the staff launching out beams that lock on enemies and all. So it's just the combination of Hoot Loop's creature, that being an owl, combined with the illusion from the very clever figurine structure to for weaponry, just making Hoot Loop feel like a well-rounded, really well-designed Skylander, worthy of this Design Award, you could even say, which is why he's here, and Wildfire's only our runner-up, mind you. So our next category is going to be none other than the Repos Awards. Without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees of this category there will be, and it's going to be 6. So without further ado, let's click onto the random name picker to find out who those 6 nominees will be, and it's going to start off with none other than Series 2 Wrecking Ball. But our next nominee of the 6 is going to be none other than Ninja Stealth Elf. But our third nominee, which means we're already halfway there with only 4 more slots to go, we have Blizzard Chill. Our fourth nominee is going to be none other than Hyper Beam at Prison Break, but our fifth nominee is going to be none other than Hornblast Whirlwind. But as for our final nominee, we have none other Then Phantom Cinder. Before you, we have the 6 random nominees that were generated for the Repos Award, the award given to the greatest repos of the entire Skylanders franchise, and this time around the random name picker seems to be biased towards Swap Force, because we got 5 repos from Swap Force, and then only 1 repo from Giants, and none to show up from Trap Team whatsoever. But as I digress, our runner-up is going to be none other than Phantom Cinder. What I love about this repos is the plastics used, because her wings are slightly see-through, and so that just makes the material look all the more cooler and adds a lot of detail to Cinder. It really establishes her lightning type powers with, of course, the bolt that's stricken across her wing, and the pose itself just looks really cool. It makes Cinder look like she's very battle ready, as she's ready to perform attacks for certain. So overall, the combination of the really clever translucent type plastic with a combination of the pose just makes Phantom Cinder a repos to remember. But the greatest repos amongst all of our nominees is going to be none other than Hyper Beam Prison Break, purely because the red crystals have a really nice contrast between the rest of the browns and the greens for the figurine. Of course, the fact that Prison Break is shooting up his arms, ready to fire off his lasers into the sky, really grants you that idea of victory, and once again makes Prison Break very intimidating and a character that you really want to play as, because you really want to garner yourself that victory that Hyper Beam Prison Break seems to already be celebrating, mind you. And on top of that, the red crystals even don't only look awesome on the figurine, but they make for a really great wow power within the game, as you can carve Prison Break's figure into his reflector crystals, which is such a great attention to detail, and it looks so cool due to set detail. So overall, the combination of the wow power, the contrast in colours, and just how well this repos expands upon the original design of Prison Break is what grants Hyper Beam Prison Break a well-deserved Repos Award. Our next category is going to be none other than the Variant Awards. Without further ado, let's generate random numbers to find out how many nominees will be included as part of this award category, and it's going to be 5. So without further ado, once we jump into the variant random name picker, you'll notice that every single variant's name is included within this random name picker, except for the legendaries, because as you guys know already, the legendary variants get their own category. Regardless, our first of the 5 nominees is going to be none other than Steel-Plated Hoodsicle, but our second of all the nominees is going to be none other than Candy-Coated Chopscotch. But our third nominee, which means we're already halfway there with 3 more slots still open, we have Gnarly T-Rex. Our fourth and second to last nominee is going to be none other than Dark Snapshot. But as for our final nominee, on the other hand, we have ourselves none other than Exciting Thrillipede. Before you, we have the 5 nominees for the Variant Award, yet another category where the random name picker is once again showcasing its bias against the core characters, because we don't have a single core nominated for this here category, which is of course the award given to the greatest variant of the entire Skylanders franchise. So this is where you start questioning whether or not this is rigged, and in accordance to the random name picker, it totally is. But as I digress, our runner-up for the Variant Award is going to be none other than Candy-Coated Chopscotch. Just look at the detailing on his figurine right here. The blacks embedded within the orange, and then of course the little dots of black plastered around all of the carvings, mind you, really gives the illusion of a candy-coated Chopscotch being pumpkin-like, and that really ties into her theming, since she's based on Halloween. And not to mention, you also have the very nice contrast in greens with the oranges. That's a very nice shade for her hair in particular, mind you, to just make the figurine look cool and really tie into its well, what it's based off, you could say. But easily the greatest variant of the 5 nominees is going to be Gnarly T-Rex. The blue and the black is a very unique blend of colours that contrast each other very nicely to create a very good looking variant, which of course stands out amongst the rest of the variant crowd for having a unique colour style behind it, and really fitting for design work here. This looks like a Darkwood version of T-Rex, so naturally he still has that kind of wooden based aesthetic to him, so for there it doesn't lose any of T-Rex's detail or design elements, making it truly a perfectly executed variant, which is what makes Gnarly T-Rex worthy of a variant award, mind you. As for the next category, we have the Legendary Awards. Without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees will be included within this category, and it's going to be 8. So I mentioned earlier about how for previous random name picker didn't have any of the legendaries listed because they were included in their own category. Well, here we have the random name picker with all of the legendaries listed and nothing else. Without further ado, let's pick the first of our 8 random nominees, and it's going to be none other than Legendary Bushwhack. But our next nominee is going to be none other than Legendary Stealth Elf. Our third nominee is going to be none other than, hopefully not a repeat, Legendary Zulu, who's completely unique, so he can count as our third slot right here. But as for our fourth nominee, we have none other than Legendary Bone Bash Rollerball. That's quite the mouthful. Regardless, our next nominee right here, the fifth one specifically, we have Legendary Blades. So now we only have 3 more slots open for the category, and it's going to be none other than Legendary Sunrunner at the 6th slot right here. But as for our 7th nomination, we have a character that the laptop was very clearly very excited about, as its fans are working like crazy to cool down its overexcitement. But regardless, we have Legendary Trick Happy. But who's our final nomination going to be for this category? It's going to be Legendary Bouncer. Before you, we have the 8 randomly generated nominees for the Legendary Award, the award given to the greatest legendary of the Skylanders franchise. And finally, we have some cores picked out by a random name picker. It's about time that the cores started flooding in. Regardless, our runner-up for this category is going to be none other than the Sunrunner. So what I love about the Sunrunner is its texture, and it has spikes platted all around it, which is just really unique and nothing really expressed with a other Skylander, you could say, and that's because of the fact that there is no base on this. It takes full advantage of the fact that this is a futuristic aircraft for you to, of course, fly around and play with as a toy of all things. And for colours for this, really bring out the uniqueness of the Sunrunner. You know, the blades look cooler in black, and then the gold and the black creates a much sharper contrast, and it makes the vehicle look more futuristic like, with of course the gold painting combined with the black plates and all. It makes it look more metallic and futuristic. So the fact that the legendary color palette brings out the best of the design of the Sunrunner is ultimately what makes it such a grand legendary variant. But of course, it's not going to win out over Legendary Blades, our winner of this year's Legendary Award, for the fact that he is so well detailed. If you look onto his helmet in particular, you can see small little embedments that really add to the whole battle aesthetic of Blades, alongside, of course, you know, slight little battle damages to all of the blades along his wings and his tail, mind you. So the fact that the Skylander looks ready for combat, and the gold and the black really give you that idea that Blades has been put through the ringer, so to say, and has had his fair share of battles and emerged victorious with valor, is ultimately what makes Legendary Blade such an attractive figurine to pick up, because you really want to play as a Skylander who just looks so prepared for combat and all. And on top of that, the details really are brought out by the contrasting colours of the gold and the black. So the gold and black take full advantage of Blade's design and truly expand upon it in very unique and interesting ways that none of the legendary manages to, of course, pull off, which is why Blades is the deserving winner of the Legendary Award this year round. This brings us quite nicely into our brand new category added exclusively for this year of the Skylanders Awards, and that's going to be the Elite Award category. So without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees there are going to be under this category, and it's going to be none other than 4. So let's check the random name generator for all of our nominations, which include all of the 14 Eons Elites from both Trap Team and Superchargers alike. But regardless, our first for 4 nominees in this category is going to be Eons Elite Stealth Elf. But our next category, or our next nomination even, is going to be Eons Elite Eruptor. Our third nomination is going to be none other than Eons Elite Dynarang, and our fourth and final nomination is going to be none other than Eons Elite Spyro. Before you, we have our 4 randomly generated nominees for one of this year's new award categories, the Elite category, which is an award given to the greatest Eon's Elite Skylander of the entire franchise. So without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Spyro. Now, if anyone deserves an Eon's Elite form, it's Spyro. He's technically the flagship character of the franchise. He's the one who started it all and helped Spyro's Adventure sell so well, with his name being attached to the brand. You knew you was in for an awesome time, and because of that, he just became one of the most iconic fan favourite Skylanders. So bringing him back as an Elite to truly emphasize his power and give him a figurine that truly gleams and stands out from the other iterations of Spyro is ultimately what makes this Eon's Elite so satisfying to both play as and display upon your shelf. But it's not as grand as Dynarang, this year's Eon's Elite winner, purely because he has a new pose which is far more original than Spyro, who copied the pose from his Series 1 iteration, and it looks so glorious. It adds more of the figurine to stand out because you have his weapons which also gleam in the sunlight, as well as the rest of the entirety of the figure, a longer tail which curls round to really expand upon the original Dynarang design in very unique and interesting ways, since very few Skylanders actually extend the length of their limbs based on repose design, so that makes Dynarang stand out for all the right reasons. And on top of that, it's easy to see why he's such a fan favourite Skylander and deserves to have this Eon's Elite return after having been forgotten from Spyro's Adventure, because his gameplay is so fun and so different in comparison to other Skylanders, with of course his twin boomerang attacks, his Earth Fists. Actually, they're not that unique, so I revoke that statement. But as I digress, Eon's Elite Dynarang is just so awesome, and I'm very glad that such a huge fan favourite returned in such a overpowered format, because if anyone deserved that return, it was Dynarang, therefore earning him the Elite Award this year around. Just like that, we are into our second to last category for this year's Skylander Awards, and that's going to be none other than the guest star category. So without further ado, let's generate a random number to find out how many nominees there will be for this here category. And we can't have 8 because there isn't guest stars within the entirety of the Skylanders franchise, so instead, alternatively, we're going to go with 4 different nominations for the category. So without further ado, let's find out who the first one shall be. And it's going to be none other than Cinder as our first nomination, but now we're going to move on to our second nomination under the category, and it's going to be none other than Crash Bandicoot. But our third nomination even is going to be none other than Crash Bandicoot again, who it cannot be because he just popped up already. It's funny how the random name picker has once again chosen the same Skylander twice in a row. But regardless, our third nomination for real this time is going to be Spyro. But now our fourth and final nomination of the category is going to be none other than Dr. Neo Cortex. Here are our 4 randomly generated nominees for the Guest Star Award, the award given to the greatest guest star of the entirety of the Skylanders franchise. So without further ado, our runner-up is going to be Crash Bandicoot, because first of all, his name is so fun to say in any pronunciation that isn't your normal one, shall we put it. Regardless, Crash Bandicoot was a really welcome addition to Skylanders, as it served as free advertisement for his Insane trilogy that came a few months later. And his gameplay is really fast-paced and fun because it, of course, you know, has that nostalgic kick to it due to it being based off Crash's classic moves, including his spin attack, the crates he can jump on, and of course his slide attack, mind you. And that makes the character very fun-paced and very fluent in combat because his attacks chain together very, very well. But unfortunately, when it comes to the Senseis, Crash Bandicoot is one of the weakest. His attacks don't hit as hard as they need to, and his health is far too low to justify the additional life system. So overall, Crash Bandicoot has some very great things behind him, including the character itself. The figurine is highly detailed, with some really great texturing to make it feel as though you're truly rubbing along Crash's fur when you rub your finger along the figurine, mind you. But ultimately, what lets Crash down is, of course, the fact that he's he doesn't last very long in combat due to just his attacks not hitting as hard as they need to, and him not having a large enough health bar to justify the additional life system. So that's what brings us nicely onto our winner, who was Crash's original competitor back in the first few years that their games were being released side by side, and that's going to be Spyro, because since then they've been bought up by the same publisher and now live under the same roof, that being of course the Skylanders roof. So what makes Spyro the superior guest star is just the same things that I was talking about with the Elite Award, really. The fact that Spyro has that iconic flair to him. He is the flag boy for the entirety of the Skylanders franchise. He's the reason why several people even got into Skylanders, and naturally that gives the Skylander a lot of nostalgic weight behind him, and it makes Spyro just such a memorable inclusion to Skylanders. You're never going to forget this Skylander exists, because he's very memorable and really stands out amongst the rest of the guest star crowd as a true icon of gaming and an icon of Skylanders on top of it all. So that's what makes Spyro such an amazing guest star, and has made him worthy even of the award this year around. Just like that, we have reached the final category of this year's Skylanders Awards, and that's going to be the underrated category. So without further ado, we're going to generate a random number. However, since 8 got neglected from the previous number generation, if this number is anything below 8, then we will use 8 instead, because this is a really big category, so for more nominations from there. It's 6, which is indeed lower than 8, so therefore we're going to use for 8 nominations instead, which again got neglected during the guest star generation, because unfortunately there isn't as many as 8 guest stars in Skylanders throughout the entire franchise, mind you. So without further ado, let's head into our final random name generator. And since the underrated category can include any Skylander, once again we have every single Skylander listed, so let's just say our 8 nominations are going to be very lucky at that, because their chances of being picked are 1 in 167. But regardless, our first nomination for the underrated category is going to be none other than Flameslinger, who's clearly a very underrated character. Clearly, if a random name picker doesn't know what the word underrated means, but regardless, our next nominee is going to be Echo. Then our next nominee, our third one for the category, you could even say, is going to be none other than Magna Charge. Our fourth nominee is going to be none other than Zap. Our fifth nominee for the category is going to be none other than Hoot Loop. Then our sixth nominee for the category is going to be none other than T-Rex. Our seventh nominee for the category is going to be none other than HammerSlam Bowser. And our final nominee for the category is going to be none other than Food Fight. Before you, we have the 8 randomly generated nominees for the Underrated Award, the award which is granted to the Skylander as what would be implied by the name of said award, the Skylander that I would consider the most underrated of the entire franchise. Now, it will turn out that the random name picker wouldn't know the meaning of the word underrated, because several of these nominations are, well, universally beloved Skylanders, so how could they possibly be considered underrated even? But there are 2 in particular amongst this crowd that stand out as highly underrated gems that nobody really seems to talk about, or at least they didn't until recent endeavors. And so we're going to start off here with Zap, who I feel is highly underrated because people don't give this Skylander all the love he deserves. I mean, he was the favourite Skylander of a dying child, for crying out loud. And that's why I have the Series 2 iteration here, because his wow pow was made in dedication to that child, and that's just such a heartwarming thing for developers to do. And that gives me more of an emotional connection to Zap, because I was one who digged out this fact as part of a video I was making on this character in specific a few years back. And before I helped spread the word about this amazing fact, not many people knew about it, and so if I was making this award ceremony a few years back, Zap would absolutely win the award. But now that people have started giving this Skylander additional chances due to the awesomeness behind his wow pow dedication, and the fact that people are starting to realise how awesome this character is ultimately what has savoured this character in the recognition of the community, and unfortunately that means he's not going to be winning the award here. But our true runner-up is going to be Echo, because she seems to be a highly forgotten Skylander, mostly because she was amongst the cores of Trap Team, which, let's be honest, nobody remembered because they were so overshadowed by the Trap Masters. And that's a shame, really, because she has a really detailed design. Sure, it's a bit of a knockoff of the Skylander that she's right next to right here. But it expands upon that design and adds more detail to the figurine to show us, you know, what another sea creature from Skylanders could look like with additional scales and it being more music-based with ears that look like fancy headphones. That's so clever. And her gameplay is also pretty fun. You know, her attacks string together quite well and are very fun to utilise with some great visuals and some amazing power to boot. But I feel like the winner, without a shadow of a doubt, of the underrated award will be Food Fight. Now, the only reason people even remember Food Fight is because he was a starter pack character. Without that, he would be entirely forgotten, and that's not fair for a Skylander that's as awesome as Food Fight is. He has a really unique gimmick to where he plants tomatoes and then he can pick them up to shoot giant tomatoes out of his bazooka, which is a very unique gameplay style that has gone highly underrated. And above all, I feel like Food Fight isn't talked about nearly enough by the community, with the exception of him being a starter pack Skylander, mind you. So ultimately, with this character being left in the dust, especially by his fellow Trapmaster Snapshot, who was also included in the starter pack, is what makes Food Fight such an underrated gem of a Skylander, and you should absolutely go check him out, because believe me, if you give him a second chance, you might realise just how awesome this Skylander is on a design level, because just look at the detail here, especially on the back of the figurine. But on top of that, it's just so much fun to play as with a very unique gameplay style. Before you, we have every single winner from this year's Skylanders Awards. So just as a little recap of who won which award, we have Drobot as the winner of the Core Award, Swarm as the winner of the Giant Award, Boomjet as the winner of the Swapper Award, Nightlight as the winner of the Trapmaster Award. Then we got Hammerslam Bowser as the winner of the Supercharger Award, Crypt Crusher as the winner of the Vehicle Award, Tidepool as the winner of the Sensei Award, Gil Runt as the winner of the Mini Award, Lightcore Grim Creeper as the winner of the Lightcore Award, and we have Hoot Loop as the winner of the Design Award, Hyper Beam Prison Break as the winner of the Repos Award, Gnarly T-Rex as the winner of the Variant Award, Legendary Blades as the winner of the Legendary Award, Dynarang, or shall I say Elite Dynarang, for the winner of the Elite Award, Spyro for the winner as the winner of the Guest Award even, and then finally Food Fight as the winner of the underrated award. But that leaves you thinking, but Ignite, didn't you say there was 2 new awards to be won this year? And that's because the final of those 2 new awards is going to be the Lucky Award, which is the award given to the luckiest Skylander of the bunch. Now, this Skylander is a Skylander that got chosen by the random name picker 4 times. He shares that position with only one other Skylander, and that's High Volt. But High Volt got nominated 4 times for the same award, which means that his chances of getting nominated that many times were only 1 in 160,000, because it was only a 1 in 20 chance each time round. So if you take 20 and times it by itself 4 times over, that's the odds you land with. Which means that by the numbers, Hoot Loop is our luckiest Skylander, because for the random name picker chose him not only twice for the Swap Force Award, which is a 1 in 16 chance either time, but it also picked him out for both the underrated and the Design Awards. Those were each 1 in 167 chances, because every single Skylander had a chance to be nominated for those their awards, which means that if you times together every single possibility that Hoot Loop had at getting nominated, that's 16 times 16 times 167 times 167, it means that for Hoot Loop to get the outcomes that he did, his odds were 1 in 7,139,584. No other Skylander managed to master odds like that during this year's awards, which therefore makes Hoot Loop the luckiest Skylander, and that also means that Hoot Loop has won 2 awards this year round, both the Design Award and the Lucky Award. But I'm still yet to use this 6 that was generated by the random number generator, so we're going to utilise this in our final award of the ceremony, which is, as always, going to be the Ignite the Fire Award. Now, for this one, because it's a special award, I have special nominees, ones that I have chosen on a personal scale, and we're going to be, of course, selecting 6 of those nominees, and the nominees are none other than Ignitor, 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 and Ignitor. So without further ado, let's find out who our 6 nominees could possibly be. Starting off with none other than Ignitor. I did not see that one coming. That's very lucky for him. His chances were very slim right now. Then our second nominee is going to be none other than Ignitor also. How about our third nominee? Is it going to be someone other than Ignitor? Who knows? Maybe Ignitor could take over Hoot Loop's award for the lucky Skylander right here. But our third nominee is going to be Ignitor. Wow, this guy's getting really lucky right now. He's really going against the odds to win this award, isn't he? Now our next nominee is going to be Ignitor. Our fifth nominee right here for the Ignite for Fire award is going to be Ignitor once again. Now our sixth and final nominee is going to be none other than Ignitor. So with our 6 nominees of the Ignite the Fire award being Ignitor, 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 and Ignitor, I suppose the only worthy winner of the Ignite the Fire award is going to be none other than Ignitor, my favourite Skylander, which automatically makes him worthy of this year's Ignite the Fire award because he is my go-to Skylander when it comes to power and strategy, because of course he can launch himself out of his fiery body to set enemies ablaze before they even have a chance to touch him, and then on top of that he has some very stylish animations for his combos which are very, very powerful, or you can charge into battle ready with his Mega Slam at the charge. So no matter how you engage battle, it's going to be unique every single time and you're going to come out victorious because Ignitor is just that powerful, and he has a really great personality to back it because he's a knight, meaning that he possesses honor and valor within his veins. So ultimately it makes him a very compelling character, one who I want to play as time and time again, which is what makes him my go-to Skylander, my favourite Skylander, and the only Skylander worthy of the Ignite the Fire award this year round. So that's going to do it for this here Skylander Awards. Of course, I've been joking around this whole time about the system being rigged, and it wasn't actually true until, of course, that final elusive Ignite the Fire Award with Ignitor right here. But it turns out he was one of the unlucky Skylanders who, despite being eligible for several categories, never even got a nomination. And unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles, because when you give your award show the Mario Party treatment and make it based solely off of luck, then that's what's going to happen. Some people are going to get extremely lucky and others not so much. I'd better check that he's okay. But regardless, with this year's awards ceremony coming to an end, I want to thank you all so much for checking out this here premiere alongside me. I cannot wait to check out your reactions of course, the look that has just taken place. And because I clearly haven't said the word look enough in this video, I'm going to go on ahead and say it again because that's kind of the theming here in case you haven't got that. But as I digress, everyone's favourite phrase right now, I will be seeing you in the next Skylanders video, and until that moment arises, peace. Phew, you're okay. I'll never do that to you ever again. What's this recorded for?